The fluorescent lights of Baker's Corner Grocery hummed with a tired, rhythmic drone that matched the spirit of Maya, a 24-year-old cashier whose hands moved with a muscle memory born of 3 years on her feet. It was 6 p.m., the rush hour where patience wears thin and the air smells like wet pavement and rotisserie chicken. Maya wasn't just scanning barcodes, she was counting cents. Her own bank account held exactly $14.12, and her rent was due in 3 days. Every time she smiled at a customer, it was a quiet act of rebellion against the exhaustion pulling at her shoulders. Then, he stepped into her lane that he didn't look like he belonged in a store where the linoleum was peeling at the corners. He wore a charcoal overcoat that looked like it cost more than Maya's car, and his watch glinted under the harsh LEDs with a cold, silver precision. He moved with the quiet confidence of a man who never had to check the price of milk. He placed a small basket on the conveyor belt, artisanal cheese, a bottle of high-end wine, and a bouquet of white lilies. The total came to $84.50. The man reached into his inner coat pocket. His hand froze. He checked the other side. A small, frantic crease appeared between his eyebrows. He patted his trousers, then his coat again. The silence in the line began to thicken. The woman behind him, clutching a carton of eggs, sighed audibly and checked her watch. The man looked up, his face flushed with a sudden, raw vulnerability. I've left it, he whispered, more to himself than to Maya. My wallet. It's on my desk. I am so incredibly sorry. He looked at the long line of restless people, then back at the lilies. There was a specific kind of sadness in his eyes, not the anger of a rich man inconvenienced, but the hollow look of someone who had been holding it together by a thread and just felt that thread snap. He started to pull the items back toward him, his movements stiff with embarrassment. Please, just put them back. I'm sorry for wasting your time. Maya looked at the man. She saw the way his fingers lingered on the lilies. She thought about her own $14.12. She thought about the $70 she had stashed in her sock drawer for the electric bill. She thought about how many times she had stood in a line, praying the card wouldn't decline. But more than that, she saw a human being who looked like he was having the worst day of a very long life. Wait, Maya said. Her voice was small but firm. The man stopped. The store seemed to hold its breath. Maya reached into her own purse under the counter, pulled out her personal debit card, and swiped it before she could talk herself out of it. Approved, the receipt printer word, cutting through the sudden, heavy silence that smothered the store. The woman with the eggs stopped huffing. The teenager in line stopped scrolling on his phone. Everyone was staring at the girl in the polyester uniform who had just spent her week's groceries on a stranger's luxury. It's okay, Maya said, bagging the lilies and the wine. Everyone has those days. Consider it a gift. The man stared at her. He didn't say, thank you, immediately, he couldn't. His throat moved as he swallowed hard, his eyes shimmering with a shock that transcended money. He took the bags with trembling hands, whispered a choked, you have no idea what this means, and walked out into the rain. The rest of Maya's shift passed in a blur of whispers. Some customers looked at her like she was a saint, others looked at her like she was a fool. By the time she walked home in the dark, the adrenaline had faded, replaced by the cold reality that she now had no way to pay her rent. She sat in her dark apartment, drinking tea, wondering if her authentic moment of kindness was going to cost her her home. She didn't regret it, but she was terrified. 2 days later, a black sedan pulled up to the curb of the grocery store. The same man walked in, but he wasn't wearing the overcoat. He looked rested, yet humble. He didn't go to the aisles, he went straight to the manager's office. 10 minutes later, Maya was called back. Inside, the man stood up. My name is Elias Thorne, he said. The night I came in here, I was on my way to my wife's funeral. She loved those white lilies. I had spent the last year losing her to a long illness, and that day, my mind was so shattered I forgot the simplest things. I felt like the world was ending, and then a stranger, someone who clearly needed that money more than I did, reminded me that there is still grace in the world. He handed her a simple white envelope. I'm not paying you back, Maya. You can't pay back a miracle. You can only pass it on. When Maya opened the envelope after he left, she didn't find $84.50. She found a deed to the small house she had been renting, paid in full by a trust Elias had established that morning. Attached was a note, the world is loud, but kindness is louder. Never let the hum of the world drown out your heart. Maya walked back to her register, her eyes blurred with tears. She realized then that when you give from a place of emptiness, you create a space for the universe to fill you back up. The store was still humming, the lights were still flickering, but for Maya, the world was finally quiet, and finally, beautifully, home.